Thank you for joining me for yet another YouTube video about the Night Crusader series, brand new book series, about the newest superheroes to drop onto the scene. Um, all the episodes of the Night Crusader series are based in the future. They're not based in the present, they're based in the future. Like episode one is based in the decade of the 2510s, between 2512 and 2518. So that's pretty far in the future from now. Realm of the Invader, episode 2, is based on the late 23rd through the mid 25th century. Now, that's a pretty big span of history when you think about it, but somehow, even with that long span of history, it still doesn't encompass the entire history of Dragon, as evidenced by the fact that it is History of Dragon Part 1. So, obviously, it's not complete. And if you take a look at the end of Realm of the Invader, it ends with "to be continued," which means the history of Dragon is not over. As opposed to episode 1, Cult of Stephen, as you check out the end of that episode, it ends with "the end," which means that story is over. But History of Dragon is not finished yet. Now, every episode of the Night Crusader series more or less is meant to stand on its own. In other words, you should be able to read that episode and pretty much follow what's going on without having to read any other episode. The sole exception to that rule may be the not yet published yet episode 3. It's possible you may have to read episode 2 in order to know what's going on in episode 3, because there are some things. It's the way it starts off assuming that you know everything from episode 2 before it proceeds. Now, some people might be able to argue that episode 3 can stand on its own as much as any other episode of the Night Crusader series. We'll find out for sure when it's actually published. But all I can tell you for now is that it's possible, just possible, that you may have to read part 2 in order to understand what's going on in episode. You may have to read episode 2 in order to know what's going on in episode 3. But, that could be debatable. Another thing is, in case you're wondering, because, I told you that episode 1 is based in the 2510s, and episode 2 is based on the late 23rd through the mid 25th centuries. You may be wondering, why is episode 2 based earlier than episode 1? Well, there are many, many answers to that question, but one answer to that question is Night Crusader series episode 2 is also an origin story. So it's an origin story. How did this band become the Night Crusaders to begin with? It's an origin story of the Night Crusaders. So among other reasons, that's one of the reasons why it's based earlier. But we'll talk about more about that when we start talking about episode 2 more in deep detail. But all I wanted to let you know now is, what time span we're dealing with here. So and that's about it for this um episode of this YouTube episode of the Night Crusader series. Um, Now that we have some general information, I'm hoping that maybe in the next episode we might just grab one of these two episodes and talk about them a little bit more in detail. We'll see. Okay, well, thank you for joining me for this episode, and hope to see you soon.